And our next presenter comes from Earth's Energy Limited. Earth's Energy has an ASX code EE1 and a market cap approximating 12 million. Earth's Energy is a company focused on acquiring and developing geothermal energy projects in Australia and utilising closed-loop system technology for efficient, emission-free electricity generation. Presenting from the company today is Managing Director Matt Kay. Matt, welcome, and please take it away.
Thanks, Manny. Appreciate you hosting today, and thanks very much for the people who are joining on the video call as well. Look, from my perspective, just so you're aware, my background is predominantly oil and gas for 30 odd years, through Santos and Woodside and Oil Search. And then I ran Beach Energy for 6 years, basically quadrupling the size of the company over that period. The last 2 years, I've been focused on green energy opportunities. And Earth's Energy is one that myself and some other individuals have been working on for the last 2 odd years. And you just saw us start trading last month. And the reason we've done that is, one, we believe that we're off track at the moment in terms of getting to net zero targets. And two, the obvious play here for geothermal technology is that it's a proven technology, a proven energy source that provides 24/7 green power. So it's ideal to roll out in Australia. And the technology has changed dramatically over the past decade since geothermal was previously looked at in earnest in Australia. So we'll take you through some of that story today. Slide 3, please. We just skip past the disclaimer. I'll let you read that at your leisure when you need some help getting off to sleep. We just announced this week a really important announcement. So we've basically entered into a strategic relationship with Baker Hughes, one of the world's biggest technology and energy solution players, as most of you would know, operating in over 120 countries. The reason for that is Baker Hughes has an end-to-end capability that can absolutely support us, given their global background. They've also been active in geothermal for more than 40 years. And most importantly, they acquired an interest in Greenfire Energy in 2022, which is a company that I think is the global leader at the moment on advanced geothermal systems, which I'll take you through later. They're systems that can deal with lower levels of heat at rock source, which is what we will need in Australia to move forward. So that's what we're looking at, is applying advanced geothermal system technology along with Baker Hughes to bring 24/7 green power to Australia. Next slide, please. So that's the background of Baker Hughes. For those who aren't aware, 58,000 employees across the globe. And you can see that one of the advantages we have here as well is they go end to end, basically from subsurface all the way through to production. And it's a great relationship to have with them. It's not just a pay by the drink relationship. It's a deliberate strategic relationship where we'll work together to solve solutions for geothermal going forward in Australia. Next slide, please. So it is a collaboration. We'll have a joint steering committee set up with myself and the head of Baker Hughes Asia Pacific. And basically, we're moving quickly. I was already on the phone with them in depth this morning. And basically, we'll be assessing all the geothermal data that we already have, including that's been used by our independent expert during our listing process. We'll look at all the risks and opportunities for geothermal around our acreage. And basically, we're going straight into a scoping study that will continually keep the market updated as we move through in the near term. So there's going to be a flow of news coming through as we work through all of those issues and keeping the market updated. Next slide, please. So for those who aren't aware of geothermal, the great advantage of geothermal is that it is genuinely 24/7 renewable power. It can provide a genuine base load, and it's not weather dependent. So it doesn't matter whether the sun's shining or the wind's blowing. Geothermal is there 24/7. And the other advantage that it has is A, it's abundant, because what you're really doing is taking heat from rocks in the earth, which obviously we know exists throughout. The issue that we work through is at what depth do we have to get to, and with what capex do we need to get through to that point. It is modular, it's scalable. There's a good reason why it's used around the world. And the great breakthrough that I'll take you through in a moment is the advanced geothermal systems in the past 10 years. And we'll talk about who's behind that and why. And it's all the major players in energy. And I'll let you read all of the quotes to your right there. But what you're seeing is very high caliber analysts suggesting that we're about to see a dramatic increase in geothermal across the globe because of the breakthroughs that have just taken place. From our position, we've been down this path for, in effect, more than 2 years for a number of us. And therefore, we've positioned ourselves well. We've got acreage that we'll talk about in South Australia and in Queensland. So we've had the chance over that period to really cherry pick the states that we wanted to be in and the acreage that we wanted as well. Next slide, please. I'll skip past our team quite quickly. So I think we just mentioned that we've only been up and running since early Feb. That's the team there. A number of proven individuals. And from our perspective, we've also got the technical know-how and knowledge with Dr. Trey Meckel there as our head of subsurface, who's worked globally and has been down the pathway of geothermal for a number of years already. Next slide, thanks. So this is a reminder, or maybe an introduction for some of you, of the importance of geothermal. It is an advantaged source because it is 24/7. So if you look at capacity factors here, this is the US example. It has the highest capacity factor of any of the renewable power sources. It also has in the US the lowest levelized cost of electricity for dispatchable technologies. So we've seen it proven throughout the globe. It has an advantage of very minimal land usage. It has an advantage of upfront capex, and once you've actually got your facilities in place and your wells in place, there's very little ongoing capex from that point on. So if you have a 30-year life or more, you've got your upfront capital, and ongoing capital is very minimal. So it's not like oil and gas, where particularly coal seam gas is an example, where you're continually having to invest capital to keep the plant full. The other advantage we have relative to resources like oil and gas is we know the heat's there. All right. So when we're drilling, we know the heat's there. It's a question of how deep and what temperature. Whereas, as we all know, in the resources sector, it's often a 1 in 10 play or a 2 in 10 play, or sometimes worse. Next one, please. I'll skip past this one quite quickly. So what you'll see here is that there's been a steady growth, I'd say, of geothermal generation across the globe. The reason for that is mainly because the industry's focused on following the ring of fire around the globe to get the required heat levels out of the rocks, well above 200 degrees Celsius. And what's changed now is with the new technology, we don't require that level of heat. And what that means is the mantra now for the industry is geothermal anywhere. So i.e. take the industry anywhere in the globe. Next one, please. So this is the change that's taken place. So basically we now have advanced geothermal technologies. If you look at the right-hand side of that chart there, you'll see the closed loop system. And basically what you will also see is that you're drilling into less depth than you had to previously in a closed loop. And the advantage of the closed loop is we can basically contain fluid inside pipe. So we don't actually require permeability in the rocks that we're drilling into. And what it also means is we have, in effect, zero emissions. So that's very attractive to governments. It's very attractive to the power industry. It's also very attractive to others who are looking to basically try and reduce their emissions through their end-to-end process. And the great advantage here is what the industry would say is you can target 80 to 180 degrees Celsius for closed loop systems. In the Australian context, we think that's more likely to be around 150 to 180 degrees Celsius. And that's what we're working through right now. So it's a really exciting time. It's an exciting opportunity that's being rolled out, frankly, across the globe. Next slide, please. And there it is. Companies who are backing closed loop systems and new technologies in geothermal. You can see there's been more than $600 million raised in the last 3 years, US. And you can see the companies that are backing this: Shell, Chevron, BP, all the big names. Next one, please. And this is the prediction. The prediction on the right there from Wood Mackenzie is that this industry is about to move from around 20 megawatts to gigawatts to about 1,000 gigawatts across the globe and go past nuclear as an energy source. Next one, please. Some of you may know that it's been tried previously in Australia, but without this technology, which meant we were targeting 4,000 to 5,000 metres of depth. Change is what we've talked about. It's new technology. Maybe if we can go to the third last slide, please. That's it. Thank you. So we have a strong acreage position, as I said, in South Australia and in Queensland. That's because we've been at this for 2 to 3 years. So I think there's a number of others who would like to have that position, but we've now secured it. We've got our board in place. We've got more acreage under application. We've just done our announcement with our technology partner. You can see we're in a scoping study right now that will be feeding information out to the market. That'll be confirming our geological studies, our engineering studies, our economics, and passing that through with an aim basically to be drilling in earnest by the second half of next year. So there's a lot of news flow. We also have 100% of our acreage, so we have the opportunity to farm down and look at bringing partners in the relatively near term as well. So this is a continual news flow story from my perspective. And that's the highlights. We're an early mover here. We've just announced a deal with a leading technology partner. We're very close to infrastructure, so we've deliberately done that. This is not a science experiment. We're very close to the NEM to be able to connect in and provide customers such as the likes of the mining industry, BHP, but also the broader power market through South Australia and through Queensland. And as I said, this is 24/7 green power. I think perhaps the only comparative to us is nuclear, and I'll let you make the judgment call on whether you think nuclear is coming to Australia anytime soon. And I'll let you read the rest at your leisure. Thanks, Manny.
All right, Matt. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's an interesting space. I mean, it's our cousins across the ditch, the Kiwis, have been into geothermal for quite a long time. And we always wondered, why, well, I guess you've explained it. They are on the ring of fire, so there's plenty of heat over there. But so essentially what you're saying is the technology has evolved to a point where it now becomes viable in a continent like Australia.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And can I start off? There are a couple of questions that have come in. Can I start off with getting perhaps a little bit more detail on why you've chosen the acreage that you've chosen? Is there anything? Why? What was the rationale specifically behind that?
Yeah, so there's been a number of elements to that. Obviously, everything from subsurface analysis and understanding through to government support and government policy, and all the way through to customers and market. When you look at our acreage, we're deliberately surrounded by existing infrastructure, existing power lines, existing substations that we can tie into. As I said, I'm a commercial being by background, so this is not a science experiment. We're out to make commercial energy here. That's our target, and that's why we're close to infrastructure. That's why we've chosen the acreage we've had. And we did, frankly, because we were at this more than 2 years ago, we did have an opportunity to cherry pick a number of areas across a number of states, and we've narrowed down to the current targets that we have.
Okay, and there is a question that's come in asking about the sort of the status of any discussions, if you've had any, with the traditional owners of of the areas that you're in. Specifically, this question refers to the Queensland project.
Yeah, absolutely is the answer. So you'll see we've already been granted one of our 4 applications within Queensland. And the process in Queensland is that you do have to move through the native title approvals pre-grant. So we've absolutely already been through that process once. We're going through it again at the moment. And what we're finding is that's absolutely manageable and a respectful process as it should be. So no major concerns in relation to that.
Okay, understood. And a more general question that's come in is asking, what you see as the main risks to the development specifically of your South Australian assets.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. As I said earlier, we know the heat's there, so it's not like an oil and gas play, as I said, in terms of chance of success on an exploration well. And for a geothermal operation, it's really just packaging the whole end-to-end position together. So what's the all-in cost going to be in terms of drilling, in terms of basically having the heat source that we will have, and then getting through a heat exchanger through basically to market. So it'll be the all-in process that we have to work through. But from our perspective, we don't think market's a great challenge for us, because we know that at the moment and in the foreseeable future, we don't see other 24/7 players. We just don't. But as I said earlier, you can make your own judgment call on where you think nuclear is going to go in Australia.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. There are quite a few. For those of you whose questions I don't get to ask Matt right now, we'll pass on your information to Matt, and he can come back and answer those offline. But the last question for you, Matt, can you give us a sense of how much a geothermal plant will cost to get to production?
The magical question, isn't it? We've worked through some of that already. We're working through that with Baker Hughes in our scoping study as well. So we'll release some guidance to the market on that. The sort of ballpark figure historically, for example, in the US, has sort of been about 50 million Aussie for 10 megawatts. And what we're working through is the additional capital that will come through in a closed loop system. And we'll be announcing those type of numbers to the market in short order as we work through it. But we don't want to put numbers out that we can't back. So we're just doing that work right now with our colleagues at Baker Hughes.
Okay, great. Matt, thank you again for your time today, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Manny. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks all.